was a bitter morning in Turin, January 3rd, 1889. The air was sharp, the cobblestones slick with frost. Across the quiet Piazza Carlo Alberto walked a philosopher, tall, mustached, solitary. His name, Friedrich Nietzsche, once ablaze with insight and fury. Now his eyes held a softer, haunted gleam, as though he had wandered too far in thought and come back changed. Nietzsche, the man who had declared the death of God, who dared humanity to forge meaning without divine aid, moved through the square like an echo of himself. Then something happened. Simple, small, seismic. A horse tethered to a cart stood quivering beneath the crack of a whip. The sound sliced through the still morning. The horse flinched, and Nietzsche stopped. He moved to the animal, he wrapped his arms around its neck, and he wept. Tears spilled down his cheeks. Sobs racked his frame. It was a gesture without language, without philosophy, only feeling. And in that moment, Nietzsche, one of the most brilliant and unsettling minds of the 19th century, fell silent. He collapsed not just to the cobblestones, but into a long twilight of silence and madness. He would never write again. That moment, the embrace of a horse, has echoed through history. They call it the Turin Horse. Bela Tarr would immortalize it in film. Biographers have pondered it. Artists have reimagined it. But still, the question remains, why did Nietzsche hug the horse? What broke in him that day? Some say it was madness, others grief. But perhaps it was something else. A final clarity, not of mind but of heart. To understand the embrace we must return, not just to that morning, but to the path Nietzsche had walked. Through his work he warned against slave morality, rejected pity and called for the rise of the Übermensch. A human who could transcend conventional values and affirm life in its entirety. But in that embrace, Nietzsche was not transcending, he was descending into the world itself, into pain, into presence. The moment was Dionysian. In The Birth of Tragedy, Nietzsche wrote of the Dionysian as the raw, primal force of existence. Music, dance, ecstasy, destruction. In that square, he did not describe the Dionysian, he became it. He did not think compassion, he was compassion. He did not contemplate suffering, he felt it. The horse was no longer just an animal, it was the world, beaten, trembling, alive. There is irony here. Nietzsche spent his life criticizing Schopenhauer's pessimism, his view of life as endless suffering. Yet, in that moment, Nietzsche enacted Schopenhauer's vision of compassion, not from thought, but from identification. Not as a doctrine, but as a gesture. Still, it wasn't the pity Nietzsche despised, the self-righteous, passive kind he critiqued in Zarathustra. No, this was something deeper, fiercer. He was not choosing sides. He was holding them all, the master, the slave, the whip, the wound. The Übermensch to Nietzsche was not a tyrant. It was one who created meaning, who affirmed life, who danced close to chaos and returned with something new. In that moment, Nietzsche wasn't defeated by the world. He had written, God is dead. He had handed humanity the burden of meaning. But what happens when meaning collides with pain? Real, quivering, felt pain. Perhaps then philosophy yields, not to defeat, but to love. Kant might have seen in the act a moral truth, treating another being as an end. Nietzsche had rejected Kant's universalism, yet in this final gesture did he not embody that very principle, not out of duty, but instinct. The horse, archetype of strength and nobility, was brought low, and Nietzsche bowed with it, not in condescension, in reverence. Whatever is done from love, Nietzsche once wrote, occurs beyond good and evil. That morning, he was no longer writing those words. He was living them. Spinoza spoke of power as the capacity to act in harmony with nature. Nietzsche's act, raw and unreasoned, was a kind of Spinozist surrender. Not weakness, but alignment. Not resignation, but recognition. Carl Jung might have called it the collapse of the ego. For years, Nietzsche had been the mind, the critic, the voice. In Turin, he let go. He stopped thinking. He felt. Jung described individuation as the process of becoming whole. Nietzsche's tears might have marked the end of that process. The mind yielded to the heart. The abyss became a mirror. Camus, who wrestled with absurdity, might have seen in this act not collapse, but rebellion. A refusal to look away, a choice to feel, a moment of meaning carved from the void. Why did Nietzsche hug the horse? Perhaps because there was no other truth left to speak. Perhaps because he finally saw that power is not in conquest, but in connection. The Turin Horse was not the end of Nietzsche's philosophy. It was its culmination. He had written of eternal recurrence, that we must live as though each moment returns forever. And in that embrace, he lived a moment worth returning to. A man, a horse, a tear. No theory, no doctrine, only being, only love.